Thank you all for showing up today. Today we have a panel with artists Ramon Ramirez and Emilia García, and we're discussing the Rooted Voices exhibition. So Rooted Voices centers stories shaped by place, how neighborhoods, labor, migration, ritual, and everyday encounters leave traces that linger across generations. The exhibition highlights how stories emerge through shared conditions and relationships, through proximity, care, struggle, and collaboration. And this Rooted Voices exhibition is a student-curated exhibition made possible by Whittier College's Poet StoryLab, Narrative, Community, and Transformative Possibilities of Brown Storytelling grant funded through the Mellon Foundation. Through a special topics course, the students selected the works in this exhibition, did the curatorial theme, and today we're super excited to have two artists that are featured in the exhibition, Emilia García and Ramon Ramirez. Emilia is a visual artist from Los Angeles. Her work is centered on culture and her indigenous roots and the spirituality of women, as well as political and social issues affecting our communities. Her work has been exhibited nationally and internationally and also published in textbooks, art books, magazines, and book covers, and even department stores and Urban Outfitters too, right?
Yes.
Ramon Ramirez is a Los Angeles-based artist with a background in architecture. He received his BA, MA, and Master's in Architecture degrees from the University of California at Berkeley. Born and raised in Los Angeles, the city has served his muse from the onset. He's one of the featured artists in the book Contemporary Chicana Artists, published by Bilingual Press at Arizona State University. And so again, we're super thankful and happy to have you here and participating in this panel discussion. And I just wanted to just ask one open-ended question, and we can go back and forth and see how you all respond or think about this. But can you each introduce your practice and how your background informs the work that you're making in your art? And then Ramon, maybe you want to start? Or?
Sure. So, as Ed mentioned, I have multiple degrees from different disciplines. So 2 in architecture and 1 in art. And I was kind of a nerd. I was good at school. And I love looking at the city, and I still paint and live and breathe Los Angeles. And that Los Angeles is my muse, and I tend to breathe Los Angeles. I know that's kind of a scary thought, but it's true. Now, also, I consider myself Chicano, and to be Chicano is really to be everything. You know, it's not limiting. It allows me to shift. I'm a shapeshifter, and I go. You know, the painting in the background is my work, and it's of the value of Mexico. You know, and I don't think that that's not taboo for a Chicano artist to paint. I'm actually engaged currently in some paintings from up north right now, and so I actually grew up in East LA, and when I grew up in the 70s, I'm kind of an old guy. You weren't supposed to leave or cross the borders, the freeways, right? Those are like taboo. And then I went away to school up north, and when I came back, all of Los Angeles opened up for me. And now, as a painter, all of California is opening up for me. And I'm kind of hoping that all of the world opens up for me. And I know that's a strange thing to say, but you can only paint so much every day. But I'm not even, I hope I have a good 20 more years of painting. And yeah, it's going to happen.
Emilia, can you also introduce yourself, your practice, and your background, and how that informs your work?
My name is Emilia Garcia. I was born in Los Angeles, but I am also a Mexicana. I have dual citizenship because of my mother so I am a Mexican citizen as well. But I've always considered myself a Chicana before I even realized what the word meant. I grew up in the 70s. I was aware of what was going on in the schools and the boycotts and the protests. So I really leaned towards that. And, a lot of people, we all have our interpretations of what a Chicana is, because sometimes I've heard some people say, well, you Chicanas don't let us in, and it's not a club, it's a political philosophy. It's about what you think and who you are, and there is really no, for me, boundaries to keep me from that, because the old saying of where they say we're neither accepted in Mexico or we're neither accepted here, de aquí, de allá. And the point is we are, we are indigenous to the land. We're not immigrants. And so I was brought up with my grandparents. My grandparents raised me in a little town named Piru in Ventura County. And I love being brought up by my grandparents. They were just everything to me. I mean, I love my parents, but they were both working, and so I had to stay with them. And I get a lot of my feeling and my sentiments and the things that I saw. It was a town where we had a lot of braceros in the town, and I don't know why I did this. I used to in the morning go sit on a rock in front of our house, and when they would bring the braceros by in the trucks, I would sit there and wave to them. I don't know what possessed me to do that. And then when I knew they were coming back, they would come back, and I would wave them on the way back home. And my grandmother used to look at me, and I asked her what they did. So she was commenting to my parents one day that when they came to see me, what I was doing, and so my dad was, "Why do you sit out there?" And I said, "Because they pick our food." I mean, it made a big impact from way back then, that I came from a town, that is very small, and so I feel like a lot of my roots are up in Ventura County, but I would come back to go to school here, and I would do that. And I really didn't start my career till later in life. I got married, I had kids, I was doing the corporate thing that just really drove me insane, because when I graduated from school, my day, they would tell the women to go home and the girls to go home and get married. They would tell the guys, if they were Mexican, you maybe go be a mechanic or do something like that. You're not college material. So then I said, they asked me what I wanted to be, and I said I wanted to major in sociology, and they kind of laughed and said, "Oh, you're just not going to make it there." And they said, "Think of something else." And then I just said, "I really want to be an artist." And they said, "Oh my gosh, you have no clue. You can never make it." Deterred me. Just go home and get married. Well, I did go to work. I did get married, but not because they told me. But then I was always like a closet artist. And later in life, I just felt that life was going by and I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. Circumstances in my life changed that were very dramatic. And I just walked into work one day, and I still, to this day, can't believe I did that. I just told them I'd quit. They looked at me like I was nuts. Like, "What are you going to do?" And I wouldn't tell them, because I knew they would think I was nuts. After 20-some years at a company, I just told them I had a personal opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And I drove home crying because I thought, what the heck did I just do? And I just went home and started drawing and painting, and I didn't even have any. My first work was with coffee. I made coffee and I painted in with makeup because I didn't have anything.
Wow.
So then I started investigating, and actually I started thinking, how am I going to make some money? So what I did was I did my drawings and my paintings, and then I actually went and invested in some oil pastels, did some work. And I started making greeting cards out of them. And I did them with things that would reflect who we are and what it meant for us. And because I remember back in the day, they had a line of greeting cards called Mahogany, and it was for the African Americans, for our black brothers and sisters. And I thought, and I'd look at us, and they'd have just a little guy under a cactus, looked like he's all drunk or whatever. And I thought, so that's what they think of us. I've always had this thing that we were being oppressed or looked at differently. When I worked downtown, when I was 16, I would take the bus, and some guy is getting on the bus, and he goes, "What are you?" And I go, "What do you mean, what am I?" He goes, "You look like an Indian." He goes, "I don't mean the kind on the horses, I mean the kind from India." And I just looked at him, I go, "No, I'm Mexican." He goes, "Oh." He just, dismissed me. Because back in the day when I grew up, we were either Mexican American or there was no Hispanic came from the Reagan years to, kind of lump us all together. And during the riots, I was walking down the street and people were like, oh my God, there's a Mexican. I got a lot of that pushback. And even in Mexico, when I would go to Mexico, they'd say, what are you? Because they hear you speaking Spanish. And so they know you're not from Mexico. And that's the thing I hated. I grew up, learned with speaking only Spanish. And then I went to school, and then they told my parents, if she doesn't speak English, she's going to go into the retarded classroom, because they didn't have disability, mental disability or whatever. They just flat out call it retarded. If she can't speak English when she starts school, that's where she's going to go. So they panicked, and everybody started speaking English, and I didn't want to speak English because my grandmother spoke Spanish, so it was really difficult for me. So I guess I did enough to get in school. So the whole time, I would just be real quiet. And then I get to 8th grade, and then, I go on to the next school, and now they say, okay, now you got to learn another language. And I'm like, oh my God, you just spent 8 years of my life, kind of telling me, no, I couldn't do this, and now you want me to. And then my teacher was Mr. Lundquist. And he was like, hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estamos ustedes? And I'm like, oh my God, I can't. So, it just.
So the second language was really easy for you, was Spanish? Is that what, the second language you had to learn, or was it?
Well, yes, it was, but now it's, I really feel that when you learn Spanish or another language as you're younger, it's a lot easier. And then me and my friends, we would kind of hide to speak Spanish to each other, but if you get caught, we weren't supposed to be speaking Spanish. So then we all just kind of gave in and tried to fit in. And then you get to high school, now they tell you got to learn. But I just thought it was so ridiculous that a man who couldn't speak Spanish well was teaching us Spanish, and now they're telling me I have to learn another language, which they just told me for 8 years I couldn't speak. So it was really, I just had this real conflicting ideas in how the world saw us from very young. So.
That's a fascinating. And then another thing that I was really interested in both your work is that, Emilia, primarily your work is figurative, and then Ramon, your work primarily is either landscape, whether it's the devoid of buildings or people, or full-on the cityscape. Like, what's your fascination and what draws your work to have to, or builds this idea of representing the landscape in many ways?
So I think that's a astute observation, and I never really thought about it. I think the primary thing is that people kind of suck, so I kind of don't paint people. But getting out of that, I think I was contaminated by architecture early on. And even, so I have 2 pieces in the show that are old signs from my dad. He's a retired hazmat truck driver. And the 2 pieces are over there in the back. And when I was growing up, he would kind of give me these things to draw on, and I saved a whole stack of them. And I didn't know what to do with them until recently. Then I just started painting on them. And the reason why I bring that up is that he would take me truck driving with him when I was very young. I was probably 8 years old, maybe. And I kind of, two things happened from there. Number one, I enjoyed looking at the city from sort of a top view of a big old semi-truck. And the other thing is that I learned that I didn't want to be a truck driver. It was too hard. And so that kind of propelled me to go to school. And so yeah, I think looking at the city from early on and studying architecture really allowed me to understand that that's actually how kind of culture is formed in a way, right? When we visit cities or different countries, we eat their food and we take pictures of their buildings. We don't, that's what we do when we visit, and that's how I think humans are expressed, right? They express themselves through their creativity, through their habitats, and so I don't know if I don't really avoid painting people. I just kind of paint what they create, and I think, having Emilia's work here too, the works sort of bounce off of each other. I think, let 1,000 flowers bloom, right? And that's what I do. I engage with the landscape, and I do work in abstraction as well. And believe it or not, my abstract work is based always on the urban environment. I don't just start painting for the fun of it. I start understanding trends and ideas and urbanism and city fabrics, and almost to the extent of fashion also. I think I started looking at fashion, even though I'm fashion handicapped, right?
or fashion forward.
I'm not. Fashion sort of style sort of passed me over. I'm still waiting for the 70s to reclaim me. But the point is that observation of who we are and what we drive and where we drive to and where we sleep and how people transform their homes and their front yards and their cities, that is important to me. And that I kind of challenge people and say, I really do paint people. I just don't paint. They're inside their houses when I paint them.
Interesting. And then, Emilia, your work is primarily figurative.
Well, I've done some scenic-y things here and there, but to me, I'm more drawn to the people. We're all a different shade of brown. I don't think of white people as white people. I don't think they realize that they are not totally white, but compared to us, they are. But it's really when we go someplace or we're on vacation. We haven't been never, but when we used to, I would love to just sit down and and watch people, just how they interact, and just think that we're somehow interconnected, and also I do it because I try to paint a reflection of who we are, where we come from, our different backgrounds, but we're still human beings, so
yeah.
We have that connection.
And you mentioned earlier this idea of labels being placed on you, and the Hispanic term too. And I also remember the Mexican American label that you could do. And this is something interesting because there's no, in any government form that they give you, there's no box that you can check off to say you're Chicano, Chicana, right? It's something that the individual has to then take on because of their personal experience, maybe the neighborhood that they live in. And I think maybe my question is for you is, now we're at a point where the idea of Chicano, Chicana has morphed into this idea of Chicanx, and the X is at the end of the word, and also the X can be at the front of the word. And now we're at Chicane, where the X has been removed, and then maybe eventually we'll become like humans or just people from Earth. But at this moment, there is this idea of trying to find ways in which people can identify themselves. Now, you were very active early on in the Chicano movement. So maybe can you briefly tell us how you identify and why you identify that way?
Well, I still identify Chicana/Mexicana because I won't give up that Mexicana because that's who we are. Mexico, the reason is Mexico recognizes that just because you're born in another place, the blood from your family, from your ancestors does not change. But it only goes so far. So it could be me, and the firstborn can become a Mexican citizen, and you just go through the process. You have to have paperwork. You have to have at least one parent who was born in Mexico, and I applied. I did that purposely. My mother used to tell me, "Why are you going through all this trouble?" She was all worried I was going to lose my name because we do our names differently. Here in the United States, the way Mexico would, if you used all the names, I would be. That's why people have such long names. I'm just going to drop the middle name, but I would be Emilia Espinosa Navarro, and then my married name is over here on the side. Doesn't really count. In Mexico, it's very different. I'm Emilia Navarro Espinosa. and because you're of your mother, you're from your mother, and your father's name is your still qualifies, but the way they look at you're of your mother. You know, your father just happened to marry your mother, but you're basically from your mother. So the real way, and a lot of it gets confusing because my husband Rudy, when he was born, he took his mother, they just gave him his mother's name. That's what a lot of people would do as the middle name, and then his father's name is Cardona, but it's actually in Mexico, they do it the reverse. Your mother's name is always your last name. And I'm very proud of who I am and where I come from, and the thing is, I'm proud of my heritage, and I want to continue the customs and the things that I grew up doing, the things how we celebrate our lives and what's important to us as Mexicanos or Latinos. And the thing with the wording, the reason why I identify so much is because of the political identity that is how it actually started. You know, it's all because of what was going on in UCLA and Berkeley and all of these things. You know, they felt like we were outcasts. So they took the term Chicano, and, you know, that's when the Mecha groups and all of this and the Brown Berets or whatever formed. So it was kind of like a stance to say this is who we are and who we believe, what we believe. Because if we say we're Mexicano, we're really not Mexicano because we're not looked at as Mexicano from the other side. You know, we're looked at like, even though we were born really on Mexican territory. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's why both of them are very important to me. I identify as a Mexicana, and my beliefs are Chicano. As far as the terms, this term thing has been discussed over and over, and no, it's this, and no, it's that. I believe anybody should call themselves what they believe. If you're Mexican and you want to say you're Latino or Latina, that's fine. But to me, that's not who we are, because that's Latin. That comes from, and even though in our past, if we go back and you do some kind of ancestry and you find out that, you know, your parents are from, grandparents or someone in your family are Spain, we have all of these different parts of us, right, who make us who we are. But who we identify, I think, is how we carry ourselves. So I'm not Latin, I'm Mexican, and to me, Chicano is what, or Chicana is my political beliefs and how I navigate my life. So I think because of this whole thing about, then they started, first it was Chicano, then it was /A to be more inclusive. Then we went on to, you know, for this person and for this group and for that group. And like you say, when we were laughing one day, we said, well, we're covering the alphabet, you know, we're getting there, right? So you have to do this. By the time you say the whole word, you know, it's like, okay, give me a drink of water. Listen. But I just feel that it's been, everybody has their own idea, and I think anybody should be able to say what they feel, be known as what they claim to be. You know, I wish we would have just stayed with Mexican American. And actually, when I used to get the forms and fill them out, I noticed there was an other there. So I checked other, and I would put Mexican American. And they said, oh, you can't do that. And I said, okay, well, I'm another, but you can erase that.
A nameless other is the only other that works, right?
I was determined I was not going to be called whatever they were trying to call me. You know?
Yeah, I think that's super interesting too, because I was born after the fall of Saigon. I didn't participate in the moratoriums or the walkouts and stuff like that. The institution hasn't really identified my work as being Chicano art because I'm not included in Chicano art exhibitions, but I do identify in certain ways that make sense to be this idea of Chicano, right?
And see, that's where I think it's wrong. You know, like you say, you don't know if you are in it or not, and you're in the book, the same book that I am from Arizona State University. We're both in that wonderful book. There's volumes of them, different ones. But
I think you're on the cover.
I'm on the cover. Yeah. And so anyway, my point is that I don't think it should be just a reflection of your work, because I have seen many pieces of work that people say they're Chicano, whatever, and I appreciate the work for what it is. To understand that someone did just what I did. They took this chance, they do this, and you know, when you start out, especially me, I started out very old. Nobody knew who I was or where I came from, and I took this crazy jump of walking away from a job, and I had my son, he was little, oh my God, my girls were grown, and I just found a way that, that's why I started making greeting cards, because I thought I gotta make money fast. So I made these greeting cards, and there was a store in Montebello Mall called Premier Salon, and it was all Latino, you know, with Chicano t-shirts and all this stuff, and I went over there and made cards, and he goes, oh my God, he goes, these are great. Do you have any more? And I said, yeah, at home. And he goes, well, can you bring them back? So I left him what I had, and then I came, and I told my son, guess what, I sold some, and we went. And I couldn't believe it when we went back, he already had them in the window. And he goes, look, Mom, your work. And he bought everything I had. He goes, do you do anything else? And I just told him, I make candles. I didn't, but I was trying to. And he goes, okay, bring me whatever you have. So I went and bought candles. I learned how to put my work on. So I started out basically doing work at home, you know, painting with whatever I had at the time until I was able to go and get something that was really paint. And I started out with oil pastels. And then I kept going, and oh my God, I was in Latina magazine, and there were my cards, my candles, this and that, and it was like the #1 thing Latinas had. I was like floored at what was going on. But all these things that they make you think, oh, you're just an artist that puts things together. You know, that was like now I hope they don't think that that's all I do, right?
Interesting.
All these chucherias.
Yeah. Las movidas.
Yes, so you do what you got to do to stay above, right?
Yeah.
And then I finally got to a point where I was selling a lot, and I just decided, okay, this is it. I got to start really concentrating and getting my work out there. And all of that led to everything that I've done. So it helped me out.
It's amazing. Sometimes things don't necessarily happen in a straight line, but sometimes they do, and they just work out.
And I won't take up any more. I'll give him time to speak.
Sorry, I'm taking a nap. I'm good.
So the point is, getting back to you, is like, you feel that, right? Like, oh, maybe my work doesn't reflect what you see. But I see a lot of landscape. I see a lot of, things that don't necessarily, people think, oh, that's not like your work. You're Chicano. If that's what you say you are and you do your work should reflect who you are. It's not exactly about the work. Because, I don't know. I see Ramon's work as being universal. You don't have to be Chicano to like it. Doesn't say, oh, your work has to be Chicano to be Chicano.
And I think that's where things get interesting, right? Because who gets to control? Well, I think this is a conversation Ramon and I have also had, is like, is there a Chicano aesthetic, and who gets to control that, right? And I think the word Chicano itself is a title that one gives themselves, right? But the institution or the market or the free enterprise also likes to play with words and ideas, and then also could place that and contextualize that on the individual. So I think maybe my question from Ramon is, how do you identify, and why does that term that you use make sense for you?
I'm going to give a couple of different answers. Let's see which one sticks.
We'll put answer 2 on the B-roll.
Yeah. You can call me whatever you want as long as your check clears. And I'm just a painter, and I've got bills like you. I got bills like the students, and I don't really struggle with terms anymore. And I actually really like the word that I started hearing that the students and you were saying, brown voices. The color brown sort of came up in conversation when we were Zoom calling. And I think back in the 70s, there was a term called la raza cósmica, which I really love, because it's not whether you're from Honduras or Guatemala or El Salvador or Mexico, you know, the reality as why I am Chicano, and I want to be clear about that. That's because that made sense to me. When I was growing up in East LA, I went to Garfield High School, and everybody was brown. I think there was like one black person, and nobody questioned our ethnicity. We sort of separated ourselves by the rockeros and the disco ducks and the jocks, and you know, and nobody said, "Oh, you're from Mexico City," or "Oh, you're from Baja California." We were just all one big old brown melting pot, you know, I guess. And I only realized that I was Chicano when I went to college, freshman year, when I was like, wow, nobody looks like me. And yeah, I mean, it was just a shock to me. And I started taking Chicano studies classes, and I started taking, like, what is this all about? So college for me was very eye-opening and very informative. Fast forward to now, I am actually very intrigued to hear from your students because, you know, I have a 24 or 5-year-old son. I forget how old he is. Don't tell him I said that. Yeah.
We'll edit that part out.
He's 20-something. He lives in Oakland, graduated college, but I don't know what he calls himself. You know, I don't know if he calls himself Chicano or Latinx or Raza Cósmica. I really don't know. And so I'm kind of curious what's coming out of here. I do agree with Emilia that the word Latino comes from the French when they occupied Mexico. And they were trying to say, hey, look, we're all one happy family. And they're excluding our indigenous roots. And so I do not identify with Latino. But some students might. Now, I also know that we are in an unprecedented time where we are being persecuted by our government. And they are scrubbing us from the websites. They are scrubbing us from the books. They are scrubbing us from the museum. They are scrubbing us from constitutional rights that we have. And now is not the time to argue what we call each other. Now is the time to stand together and say, hey, you are my community, I need you, you need me, let's figure out how we can exist, because we've been doing this for 500 years, right? And California, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, we've been here. And I think, to me, I'm less interested in the division, which goes back to my work, right? Like my work, as Emilia said, it could be universal. I'm less interested in being specific. I'm more interested in being human, and I'm interested in our stories. And that's why I love this show. I think Rooted Voices, where are these roots from, you know? And I consider myself Angelino. I'm born and raised. I paint the city. I love the city, even its flaws and pimples and all that stuff, you know. It is my city, and you can't tell me otherwise. So, having said that, short answer, I consider myself Chicano. Long answer, I think we need to stand together and not against each other, and worry about what clothes do you wear. Oh, you're not that Chicano because, you know, you don't have the right regalia.
You passed the Chicano litmus test.
Yeah, I mean, what is it to be a Chicano, right? I don't know. I consider myself Chicano, and I don't look like anybody here. Maybe I do. Maybe I look like her, actually.
Yes, you do.
You have maybe the same sunglasses.
Yeah, no. I think
that
my hair's a little longer than yours, I think. Yeah.
I think that's super interesting, right? Because it's like, can Chicano art be a particular aesthetic, and then if you don't make art that falls within that aesthetic, then you're no longer considered or contextualized or labeled Chicano because you're doing landscape paintings, you're doing abstract paintings, you're painting non-Chicano sites, right? Like, and I think that's a really interesting part of it, is can Chicanismo or Chicano art be conceptual art, right? Mm-hmm. Borrow languages from other cultures and areas and stuff like that.
I think it can, because if you look at Carlos Almaraz, he's in New York Gallery. He's gone. He's one of the major components of Chicano art. Him and Los Four and everybody else, but he is. When you think of the person, he's in major galleries in New York. People that don't look like us collect his work. His work goes for quite a bit of money, which is wonderful. So the thing is, I don't think that anybody, you say you're Chicano, this is my work. But I think we got here because Chicano work, when we started, was never valued by the art world. Mm. It was like, oh, it was out there. Then we had some major, they are now major collectors and well-known. I met Gil Cardenas long time ago, early 1980. He's one of the #1 collectors of Chicano art, but he will also tell you that he collects work from, he even had his own gallery for a very long time. But he collects also from people in Texas. And in Texas, they don't go by Chicanos, sometimes they go by Tejano or whatever the case may be. And but you're a brown person doing this work. And he looks at it and he's included that in his collection. I think Chich's collection is mainly Chicano. In Armando Duron, I think you know him.
And that's and that's really good, because now we have the Cheech Marin Center for Chicano Art and Culture, right?
Finally, that's something that says, this is who we are and we're here to stay, and this is what, It's amazing to me how people don't value it, but they love the Fridas and they love the Diegos. That is more acceptable because it's worldwide. And I just think that they still, in some way, I feel like they look down upon us, and they think we're this woke,
We're outsider art or folk art.
Right, or we're not really, that MOLA, when it was first in Long Beach established, the owner would not show Chicano art. He only wanted to show Latin American art. And finally, now that he's no longer there, his family realized, or whoever took it over now, realized that no, there's more to it. And so that's the footing of how we got in there.
It's important changes.
Yeah.
I'm going to shift the discussion to some questions that the students have actually submitted for you all. So I think we're going to start out with Ramon first. This is a question for Ramon. Coming from architecture, how do you think about space differently than a traditional image maker?
So my journey has been unique to myself, right? And if I didn't study architecture or practice as an architect, I practiced architecture for about 10 years, I think my art would be very different. And I understand spatially how things work, and I have a lot of spatial intelligence. And I'm able to map things in my mind and push them around. And like, for example, this painting back here is imagined. I didn't visit the Valley of Mexico. I didn't, so I sort of understood the Valley of Mexico through poems or something else. And so I was able to construct this thing. And so I think that's really an asset, especially when I do abstract work. I'm able to identify color as form and push and pull through paint and texture and emotion, I think. I have done a few self-portraits and I've done a few people, and I just sort of prefer not to. And it's kind of fun to be able to maybe be a maverick, I guess, you know. So I think I wanted to chime in with the last question. I'm curious how students will react to today's time and how they make their art, right? Because I don't know if I need permission anymore from the museums or from the magazines or from the galleries to make my art. And you young people with social media and the ability to communicate at will without any overhead, and I'm looking at this, right, because it takes energy to run a space. How do you young people now communicate? How do you do your work? And I'm fascinated to talk to you guys in 10 to 15 years. And so, no, really, I am, because if I were young right now, oh my God, I'd be exploding.
Yeah.
You know, and I am exploding as a person well into their 50s. I don't know how to do small paintings. I don't know how not to paint, and I'm blessed to be able to call myself only a painter, right? I don't have a day job, and I don't know how that happened, but I do know that I'm busy today, and I'm busy tomorrow, and I'm busy Saturday, and hopefully I can rest on Sunday, and I'll be at it again on Monday, you know. So architecture has been really a blessing for me. I'm going to say, I know I use the word contamination, but it's been really a blessing because I think architecture is universal. Everybody uses buildings. We live in a building, and as I think about it more, a building is more human than a human is, right? Because a human is we're just born and we have no say in it. But we have agency in making our buildings. We have agency in choosing the color. We have agency in choosing the floor, agency in choosing the bed. So your room is more indicative of who you are than your actual body. I know that's a crazy statement to make. I just made that up right now. And I believe it. Actually, that's the funniest part. I truly believe that. You know, I also believe that humans learn to paint before they learn how to write. And so I know a lot of people are going to argue against that, but no, man, painting has been around for as long as humans have been, you know. Anyway, so.
This next question is for Emilia. Emilia, your work engages with indigenous roots and spirituality. How do those elements connect to you, the land, and place?
Well, they're very important to me. You know, as I said, when I go to Mexico, I feel at home. I feel like, even though I might not 100% look like I fit in, but I feel that. And I feel the spirituality because of my grandmother. You know, I think that she nurtured me or gave me confidence to think that I was able to do what I do. You know, I was told by so many people, even my mother, ay, mija, ¿qué vas a hacer? ¿Cómo vas a hacer dinero? You know, all worried about me. And that was a big thing because it's really hard. I don't know about you, Ramon, but when you first start painting and you paint and then you put it up and you're so worried, like, oh my God, is anybody gonna like this? You have to really let that go. You'll drive yourself crazy thinking, you know what, you have to do it for you, not for other people. And you have to do it to you, to make you feel confident. You can't be worrying because there's people that like things and don't like things, and that's okay. You know, I've gotten into heavy, heated discussions because people say, why are your paintings so brown? You know, I think I told you the story about I had the Virgen, and the guy was like ready to, I'm like, you know, if you don't like it, just keep on going. That's your opinion, but it's mine, you know. This is how I see the world. To me, it's brown. That's who we are. This was Mexico, and we, you know, this is, our community is that. And I want to keep that celebrating because I feel like they're still trying to take us over, just like they are now with ICE and all of this that's going on, right? It just like never ends. So we don't treat each other as humans. That's the unfortunate part. And I think that today's people, like the students, they have their ideas about who they are and their identity, and that is good. They should be able, they don't have to conform to one thing or another. They should feel who you are and what you value. I value my family. I value art. I just wish that I had started sooner and not listened to, you know, the people or the powers or your family saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you know? Yeah. So, and I guess it's just, you know, like I said, I've painted, you know, landscapes or whatever, but I truly, I do them and then I'm like, something's missing there.
Person's missing.
I gotta put somebody in there or something like that. But, and then I also try to paint about the things that are happening to us, you know. I paint other people to bring, you know, a lot of us may not be, for the longest time I never thought I'd be able to travel, but it's my work that took me traveling. I've been so lucky to the places that I've been, you know, Europe and, you know, Canada and all these different places, Mexico, because of my work. So I thought, okay, I don't have to worry about it anymore. I mean, about people, you know, I just, you do what you feel inside and you have to block all of that out. And I remember the first time I did an event, and then they go, okay, look, tell us what this means. I'm like, oh my God, now they want me to talk about it, you know. So it can be a little overwhelming, but you just have to realize that you're doing it for you. And I think that I got that, like I said, that confidence from my grandmother. And yeah, they were very special and a part of my life. And you know, my parents, on the other hand, well, my father died young, so he never saw this part of me. Mm-hmm. But my mother, you know, as a mother, you're always worried about your kids, so she wanted me to do something a little bit more stable. But I kept at it, and I'm really happy, and I'm still painting today, and hopefully with the years that I have left, I can keep painting.
Awesome. Well, thank you again on behalf of Whittier College and the StoryLab project and the MXCali Biennial Lab. We're super thankful and happy to be able to have this time and place to spend some time with you, learn about your practice and your ideas and your artwork. And I want to have the students give you all a big round of applause and thank you for participating.
And I appreciate them for selecting my work to be part of this, so thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's good. Do you guys have any more additional questions? I don't know if we have time or not, but any spontaneous questions off of the... No, we're good?
I just have a question. Is anybody thinking about, you know, going into art or?
Don't do it.
No, do it, you know, go with your gut. Don't wait around. Do what you feel.
I kind of heard that you guys are excited for the future of art for us, for this generation of artists.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's an element in the room of like the question of, will art continue to be a thing in the future because of AI? So I kind of did want to know your opinion on AI art because I personally don't think that it's too much of a problem because I feel like as humans we like to see human art, but I'm also curious as to what you guys think as artists.
Well, you know, it's all a preference. The thing is, I'm not a big fan of AI at all, because I think it's going to displace a lot of people. You know, they claim, oh, it's going to make life easier, we're going to have these jobs and this and that, and it's taking up all our resources, the electricity, the water, a lot of things are, that go with this are affecting communities and don't want these big installations in there. But that doesn't mean as an artist you're going to take up hundreds of thousands of watts in water. I mean, I believe anybody has the right to do, and if I see it, and it's nice, but it makes you feel like, okay, they can actually take your work now and you know, modify it and use it according to that. I've already been through that thing of my art being stolen, so it's even in Mexico, somebody sent me something saying, hey, look, this is your work, and they got their name on it. So It's pretty crazy. They go, how do you feel? And I said, well, you know what? I don't feel that bad that it's Mexico. ago.
Right.
I kind of feel like, gee, thank you. But I think you should follow whatever you feel good about. I can't sit here, no, that's not great, not a good thing. We all have our preferences, and I think you guys have a great opportunity because there's so many ways now to put your artwork. When I started out, they were looking for artists. They were looking. You had to like names of people, and that's how I got selected for the Biennial in Florence, Italy. When they sent me that, I thought it was a joke. This big packet. How did they find me? I found somebody on the list. I wrote to them, "Is this real? Is this like a joke?" And the supposedly scientific art committee from Florence, Italy picked me to go to the Biennial.
Nice.
And I was there with 900 artists from all over the world. It was amazing. At that point, I didn't even care if they bought. It's really not a place to, you can buy. They come and they see it. It's a big show. But it's more about getting your work out there and people knowing you. The funny thing about that is they would see the tag USA on my paintings. They would look at me and they'd like, Mexico? And I go, yeah, they got it wrong. Even there, they were making me Mexican, so.
So for me, AI is just another tool that we're growing up with. When photography came into existence, all the painters thought that art was dead. Mm-hmm. And when Photoshop came into existence, all the artists, again, thought that art was dead. So painting has been dying for 30,000 years. And we're going to still continue to paint. And I think AI is only as smart as what has already been done. And it's going to allow us, it's going to allow you to create things that have not been thought of. AI can't do that. You can use your brain and use your culture and use your community and create what has not existed. So I would say I would take AI as a chance to be free and not to be pigeonholed into what you're supposed to paint, and let AI worry about that stuff. You worry about the new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can I take a picture of you guys? All right. Ready? Perfect. You didn't.
I was trying to jump
my
in
T
there.
right here. We'll do one here. Perfect.